If the Mariners offense regresses, how can they survive it? We'll answer that and more coming up. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Monday, May 5th, 2025. This is Tony Gonzalez and Colby Patnode for the Locked On Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the promo code Locked On MLB. That's LOCKEDON MLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. And as always, if you want to hear from me and Colby even more and help support the show, you can check out our Patreon. All you have to do to check that out is click the link in the description of this episode. All right, let's open up the mailbag like we do here every Monday and see what you want to know. Liam has our first question saying, I think it's fair to say the offense won't be able to sustain this pace over the entire season. When they eventually do cool down, how will the Mariners pivot? I think you're hoping for one of two things, preferably both, but one of two things to kind of coincide with that potential cool down. One, the reinstatement of George Kirby and eventually Logan Gilbert, and then your rotation starting to pitch to the level that you expected it to pitch at this year, or the offense is still producing, just not in the way that it's producing right now. It kind of goes from like this complete team effort that we're seeing from the offense and transitions more into Cal's carrying things, which he kind of already is at this point. But again, you're getting production throughout your entire lineup, so it's less of that and more like it's just Cal, it's Julio being a monster, it's Randy, it's your superstars carrying the load offensively.
Yeah, I mean, also like, what is the offense regressing to though? Because they're still scoring, 4 runs a night instead of 6 or 7 like they have seemingly for the last 3 weeks. That's still fine. I mean, you're still going to win a good amount of games scoring 4 runs, even with just kind of average pitching. So, we talked about this a lot, how all the injuries that have stacked up, like you got to stack wins because of it. And you have to hope that your pitching eventually gets back to where it needs to be. And some good news yesterday on that front. George Kirby threw 3 innings, really dominated for Tacoma, and he was up to 98. And so that appears to be right on line with what the Mariners were hoping. And then I know Logan gingerly played some catch yesterday, and that got a lot of people excited. We'll see if that means anything or not.
I mean, you think that they wouldn't even clear him to throw the ball at any sort of or what have you.
Yeah, but I mean, we're still 4 or 5 days away from when they were going to look at the second MRI or whatever. So we'll see. You never know how those things work out, and so hopefully he's back and around the same time Kirby is, but believe it when I see it with those injuries. So yeah, I mean, the rotation's been a little bit better recently. It's unfortunately Bryce still working through his stuff, but Hancock has stabilized things, and Brian Wu has continued to be incredible. And Luis finding ways to get outs. I don't think he was spectacular this weekend by any stretch, but he really battled, and he's the veteran, and he does what veterans do when they don't have their best stuff. They battle and they find a way to win you a game. So the pitching is going to be big, and then obviously getting Brash back. We'll see how quickly he can be thrown into super high leverage spots. Not the easiest landing spot in the world for him in his first game, but not the highest leverage situations that he's used to pitching in. So we'll see how that progresses. But yeah, you're gonna have to pitch, and you're still gonna have to find a way to scratch out a runner or 3 or 4. But that's probably going to be about, again, depending on how banged up some of these guys really are, that's probably going to be about Julio getting hot or Cal. So we'll see, because we know Polanco is not going to do this all year. We know JP's not going to do this all year, but right now Julio's not really doing a ton, and there are some other guys who could step up a little bit, but Julio really is the X factor here, because if Julio is good and he's hitting, then everybody else can be operating at like 70%. Like that's how good Julio is when he's on a roll.
Well, that's why I've said that I feel like this is more sustainable than maybe some other times that we've seen this offense pop over the last few years, at times, because Julio's not like, he is contributing, but he's not contributing as much as you would like to see him contribute. And so that's going to change at some, maybe that only changes for like a couple of weeks or a month, but that at some point this year, he is going to get hot. He is going to be kind of the engine of this offense. And so again, just kind of hope that if this offense does cool down, that kind of coincides, or like the way this offense is producing right now cools down, that coincides with Julio kind of getting it together and maybe pulling off one of those like 140 to 160 WRC plus months that we know that he's able to just pull out of thin air at any given point.
Yeah.
Next question from Baseball Brouhaha. Is Leody Tiveras and his $3.5 million left on his contract this year worth it to claim on waivers, especially with Randy potentially dealing with a hamstring issue? In a vacuum, I mean, I like Tiveras more than Dom Canzone. So, like, if Randy has to go down, and it doesn't seem like it, Dan said that it wasn't anything serious. We'll see if he's in the lineup tonight or tomorrow. But if Randy does have to go down for a little while, I'd rather them take the shot on Tiveras. Now, because of the money, are they willing to take that shot? I'd say probably not, especially for a guy. This isn't even really a Victor Robles situation because he's never really hit. I think his career high WRC plus is exactly 100. But he's a good defender, can steal bases, do all that. He's been good for about he's been good for about 10 to 15 home runs the last couple of years. So if you want to take the shot, I'd be down. I wouldn't be against it. I think because of the leftover money, not that it's really that significant, but because of the leftover money and because he might just be nothing for them, I don't think they'll touch that. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's like 26 years old and you have him for 3 more years. So it might be worth it. I mean, I'd rather have him than Ryland Thomas, than Samad Taylor, switch hitter too.
Yeah.
And look, if I'm not going to get offense out of my right field spot, can I at least get plus defense and some base running? Yeah, you can get that out of Tiveras. So, it's an interesting call that they have to make. Again, do I think that they would give $3.5 million, $4 million to this guy in May? Like, I don't know. I'd say probably not, just knowing the Mariners ownership group. And Jerry's if Jerry does it, then he has to try and kind of create more payroll space mid-season, which he's done before, so it's not impossible. But I mean, there's a little bit of Victor Robles here, just in terms of a guy who's a big leaguer, who kind of gotten pushed out of his the team he came up with and all that.
Former top prospects,
right? They're both at worst giving you really good defense and some base running skills. So there's a little bit of that. But Tiveras never really had even in small sample sizes, never really had the success that Robles had before he was DFA'd. And I mean, mostly in 2024 or 2023 before Robles got hurt. That's pretty much the success he had. Also 2019. So I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I just don't think that the Mariners are going to pay that money to get a guy that they probably look at and be like, oh, well, he's basically Ryland Thomas. And I don't know about that, but my guess is that's how they would view that.
Yeah. All right. We'll answer more of your questions coming up here in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is once again brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use promo code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, promo code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Be sure to catch Anders and Chris for the first ever Mariners postcast right here on the Locked On Mariners channel shortly after the Mariners A's game tonight. Let's get back into your questions. Jeff wants to know, when Kirby's rehab is up, who goes down, Hancock or Evans? There might be a third option here, maybe. If Bryce Miller still doesn't look right, maybe that's the point where you put him on the IL for a little bit, give him a blow, even if it's not that serious. Just kind of give him a reset, right? Put him on the IL with arm fatigue, whatever you have to call it. Just give him a little bit of a reset. Maybe that's what happens there. But if not, if it is just like who do you send down between Hancock or Evans? I think probably Evans, right? There's still some things they would like him to work through down on the minors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Evans, a few times I've seen him, he kind of has this thing where things start to unravel on him and he can't quite stop the bleeding. And we saw that happen yesterday. So, and I would guess they just trust Hancock more at this point. So, yeah, I think probably Evans goes down. But, yeah, keep an eye on Miller. We'll see. I mean, tough outing for him tonight. He's in that Little League ballpark and he's facing really good offense. So we'll see how he manages that and see how the velocity and all that stuff, the fastball command looks for Bryce, because last time it was not good. So, but yeah, hopefully Bryce starts to look a little bit like Bryce and we can kind of go from there. But yeah, I think it's between those two. I think they'd almost certainly send down Evans over Hancock.
Next question here from Doug. Assuming they're available, rank these deadline acquisition targets for the Mariners considering position, need, and cost. Got Cedric Mullins, Ryan O'Hearn, Nathaniel Lowe, Luis Robert Jr., and Lars Nootbaar. I feel like you're going to go with Mullins pretty high here because you love Cedric Mullins, and he's off to a really nice start too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what he would cost to acquire right now. I mean, none of these guys, I don't really know what it would cost to acquire them right now. So it's almost impossible for me to factor in cost here, but I might go Lars Nootbaar over because he's got the 3 years of club control, whereas Mullins only has a couple months. Nathaniel Lowe is probably the safest player to acquire here. Mullins has been great, but we know that he's not this guy, or at least he hasn't been for his entire career. Ryan O'Hearn is such a limited player, but you could use a player like that. So yeah, these are all like fine, but I think I'd probably go Nootbaar, Lowe. Kind of guessing at the cost here. Nootbaar, Lowe, Mullins, Robert, O'Hearn. Probably have it.
Yeah, O'Hearn is interesting because he's having a great year, but he's also a rental. And again, he's a limited player, like you said. And while he's been like a pretty solid hitter the last couple of years, he's never been this good. So you got to imagine that he's going to rest quite a bit. I mean, he's slugging 600 exactly. I'm interested to see where he kind of just balances out this year. Luis Robert is pretty low on this list for me. The money is the big factor there. I'd probably go Low 1 here, Nootbaar 2, Mullins 3, Robert 4, O'Hearn 5. All right. Next question here from Michael. Polanco is doing so well right now. I'd be very hesitant to play him in the field at any position when he's deemed healthy enough. I guess it comes down to like how much do you value getting like Mitch Garver more DH time and other guys more DH time, rotating guys through that DH spot over increasing the injury risk of the guy who's your best hitter right now. Now, does that continue for the rest of the year? Who knows? But like, he's your best hitter right now. How much do you want to expose him to more risk of injury just for the sake of like getting Garver and those guys more time in the DH spot. I think that's fascinating. And that's a question that the Mariners are going to have to answer here pretty soon, it seems. Where do you stand on that?
Yeah. I don't think you can just park Polanco in the DH spot, because I still think you want to use that spot to give guys like Randy Arozarena half days off and Julio half days off and try and get Garver some at-bats against righties, because he's been pretty good this year, especially over the last couple weeks. So, I don't think you can 100% just lock in that DH spot. I think he can be a primary DH, but there are going to be days where you want to give Randy, like maybe today, for example, Randy's kind of got an iffy hamstring. You don't want to push it with him playing in the outfield. Then maybe you put him in the DH spot, and you want him and Polanco in your lineup. And so Polanco has to play second, or he has to play first.
Yeah.
So, I think Polo's probably going to remain the primary DH here. But I think he does. I think you are going to have to ask him to play out in the field at least once or twice a week, maybe 3 times a week. And you're still probably going to have to manage him. Even if he is still hitting, you're probably going to have to give him days off. Just, regular maintenance days. Let's make sure this guy's around in August and September. He has dealt with a lot of lower body injuries in his career. And so you do have to protect that as well. So, I think primarily DH, but I think you are going to have to play him at second or maybe even first every once in a while. Because again, you do want to have that DH spot to give guys like Julio and maybe even JP right. You want to get those guys DH days, because with how banged up this team already is, the wear and tear of playing in the field every single day, it's tough. And the Mariners really don't have the depth to take a lot of those bats out of the lineup right now. So they're kind of in a tough spot, but I the way I look at it, I just think Polo's going to have to play in the field at least twice a week.
Yeah. But I guess the solution is just you only do it when you absolutely feel like you have to.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see how Polo's feeling about it too. Just in terms of like, how much does he like DHing? How much does he want to be back in the field and all that? So we'll see. But I don't think that you could go the rest of this year without having Polanco play in the field. I don't want to say somewhat regularly, but certainly not, a little bit more than rarely, but not so much as regular, if that makes sense, like somewhere in between.
Well, the other thing too that you have to take into account here is if he's playing presumably either second or third, you're getting worse defensively.
Yeah.
So like you probably don't want to do it that often. Like you probably, until Moore gets back, and obviously Demo's defense has been kind of a problem this year, but until Moore gets back, you probably want Rivas and Williamson on the field as much as possible. And then when Demo gets back, you probably want Moore and Williamson on the field as much as possible.
Probably.
So, All right. We're going to answer a few more of your questions here in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. Whatever it is you need, Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who delivers incredible results. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com. Upwork.com to connect with top talent and grow your business today. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Once again, be sure to catch Anders and Chris for the first ever Mariners postcast right here on the Locked On Mariners channel shortly after the Mariners A's game tonight. All right, let's get back into your questions. Chowder-headed Yokels wants to know, would Miller be on the IL if Gilbert and Kirby weren't already hurt? Kind of interesting. I understand why you asked that. I feel like they could have put him on the IL before Gilbert got hurt. So I don't know if it's necessarily linked to Gilbert landing on the IL. Maybe Kirby. Maybe they really didn't want to put two guys on the IL until they were absolutely forced to with Gilbert's injury. I don't know. The Miller thing is so weird because I don't know exactly what's going on with him. Like, clearly he is fatigued or maybe at least a little bit hurt. I also kind of feel like just his mechanics are out of whack, and that might be because he is overcompensating for something that he's dealing with. Also kind of feel like his confidence is a little shot at the moment, which kind of goes hand in hand with the rest of the stuff that I just listed. So I feel like it's just a culmination of a lot of different things. So I'm not necessarily sure if an IL stint is absolutely needed. Like, I'm not sure like how much he's just physically hurting right now. But yeah, I don't think it was linked to Gilbert. Just to answer your question, I don't think it was linked to Gilbert. Maybe it was linked to just the fact that they really didn't want to put two guys on the IL.
Yeah, it's tough to say. I mean, like, the Mariners have traditionally been super cautious with their arms. So, it would be weird to me if they just decided not to be super cautious with Bryce Miller if there was something seriously wrong there. But, at some point the results are telling you, I mean, maybe you can't find something physically or whatever enough to put him on the IL, but dude's walking 4 or 5 guys a game. And he's typically one of the best control pitchers in baseball, and his velo's down and he's just no feel for the fastball, and that's his best pitch. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, look, I mean, the eyes are telling you what's happening here. And so you kind of have to trust him at some point. But again, it's just one of those things. The Mariners pretty cautious. I mean, George Kirby came out of his first rehab start throwing 98. Like, feels like maybe they could have started that a couple weeks earlier, but they didn't want to push it, and they haven't. And because they know that their pitching is ultimately what's going to carry them. And so, yeah, they haven't wanted to push these guys. And so it'd be kind of weird if they just started doing that with Bryce. But I don't know. It's a really weird year for Bryce, and a really weird situation for the Mariners. So I can't rule it out, but it just seems like the opposite of how they would normally handle situations like this. So tough to say.
Which again makes me wonder if he's actually that hurt or if it's something more deep rooted here. Ty Dangerous Gonzalez at I Love Thanksgiving wants to know, Johnny Farmelo is off to a hot start in his return from ACL surgery. Can he surpass Colt Emerson as the top prospect in the system by the year's end? I think part of that depends on who they take at number 3 in the draft this summer. I think if they're taking Jamie Arnold, he's probably number 1 no matter what for me.
Yeah, probably.
But yeah, I mean, like, I think there's a couple of guys that could surpass Colt Emerson by year's end. I think Farmelo certainly has a shot. I think Feldon Sullivan, though, has an even greater shot of doing that.
Yeah.
And that's not really of anything of like Emerson's fault.
He's been good.
It's just Farmelo is really fun and Sullivan is really fun. So yeah.
I mean, Colt Emerson's been really good, down in Everett, and it's kind of like the Harry Ford thing from a couple of years ago. We're like, look, Harry didn't do anything wrong. It's just better prospects came into the system and all that, and they kept on pushing down. So yeah, there's definitely a shot. Farmelo is super interesting. Still got kind of that arm bar swing, but it's working for him right now, and they're not going to change that until it's no longer working for him. But yeah, freak athlete. The ACL surgery hasn't appeared to hamper his athleticism really in any way. And he came back much quicker from that than I think a lot of us were expecting. And he just raked. So yeah, there's still a lot of polish that Farmelo needs that Emerson kind of has right now. So it's possible, sure. But I would say that, Feldman is right there in that conversation as well. And, I don't think Laz can get to number 1 just because it's bat only.
Yeah.
But the bat is really good. So,
yeah.
And then whoever they take at number 3 has a high probability of being at least top 3. And so that's going to push a couple guys back anyway. So it's definitely possible. Again, we don't have to do our re-ranks now for another 2.5 months, give or take. 3 months. So,
yep.
So yeah, we'll get to it then. But yeah, Farmelo definitely interesting, and seeing him bounce back as quickly as he has and play as well as he has so far. Yeah, but I mean, like, let's talk about this in a month. See how Farmelo handles the load of playing every day and in Everett, and see if he can sustain some relative success. We'll see. Yeah. But yeah, Farmelo, Felnin, Arnold, possibly Arquette, like some of those guys might push Emerson out of the number 1 spot in a couple months. Sure.
Scott has our last question of the day. Which position player and pitcher would you trust the most with the ABS system? George has to be on the top of that list. I would say, George for pitchers, or Logan.
Cal Raleigh.
Cal Raleigh or JP.
Yeah, Cal Raleigh.
Yeah.
I think Cal's in a tier all his own there.
Yeah. I mean, JP's really good too.
I don't know. JP will sometimes take like a fastball that's up and in, but clearly a strike, and you'll be like, come on, man. And it's like, no, JP, that's Cal. Yeah. I mean, whether it's behind the plate or at the plate. Plus, wasn't Cal like 9 for 9 in the Cactus League with the challenges? So
I don't know. I wasn't keeping track. But
I'm pretty sure he was perfect in challenges in the Cactus League. So yeah, and I think honestly, I think if I were the Mariners, I would tell pitchers, you're never going to use challenges. You let Cal use the challenge. Okay.
Yeah.
But if any pitcher is going to do it, it would definitely be like George would be like, screw you. I know what a strike is. And he'd do it right away. And pretty decent chance he'd be right. But it's Cal number 1 with a bullet. And then on the pitching side, probably George. Could maybe see Brian Wu being pretty good at it too.
All right, that's going to do it for our show. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Tight Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at @LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Tight Gonzalez and Colby at CPAT11. That's CPAT11. We're also on Blue Sky. You can follow me at TDG, Colby at MLB Colby, and the show at Locked On Mariners. You can also find us on Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Mariners. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day. We'll see you next time. Peace.